The world is a vastly more dangerous place today, Sunday, August 22nd, than it was a week ago. With our enemies emboldened, particularly Iran in this case, they own the government of Iraq. They're probably going to test us here as well. We cannot have another Afghanistan. China, Russia, and Iran have all been emboldened. America has demonstrated itself to be run by a group of overeducated, fundamentalist, woke imbeciles. Somehow we have managed to alienate even our closest allies. And it's all over this poorly planned, completely uncoordinated pullout. I found out today that Biden did not consult with a single U.S. ally prior to doing this unilateral pullout. Parliament holds Biden in contempt. Same for the Chancellor of Germany. So the plan, as I've observed and has been reported, it is so asinine that whoever dreamed it up had to have had all the common sense and moral courage sucked out of their heads at an elite university. Because it certainly doesn't sound like the military was involved in the planning. So this administration is made up of experts that have fancy degrees and they've got accolades on their walls, but they don't really have any experience and they certainly don't have any wisdom. They're so smart, they're stupid. These are people who don't understand that in much of the world, everything happens at the point of a gun. But you can't just send them a memo and ask nicely and expect things to go well. And it's ironic that while they don't realize that many places in the world, everything happens at the point of the gun, it's exactly where they want to take our country. We still have no idea how many Americans are stranded in Afghanistan. We really have no idea. The lowest number I've heard at this point is 10,000. I won't even tell you the highest number I've heard because it will scare the ever-living shit out of you. And I pray to God that it's not the case. I really do. So the situation is dire. It is chaotic. The Biden administration is currently in power. They got power, but they have zero authority. They have no authority. They have zero credibility. The American people no longer trust their government across the spectrum. Even the press, who covered for this guy during the entire campaign, if you can even call what he did a campaign, they're not even covering for him. And I'm going to get to I got a crazy idea that I'll throw out at you here later on. I'm going to say it again. I've said it on other videos. I want you all to hear it. I want to know what you think about it. The President of the United States, I don't know why I can't say S's today. The President of the United States, the Vice President, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, and the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff should resign or they should be removed. They are all complicit in this global disaster. And the best bad thing of all the choices we have is to remove the whole lot of them, because anybody else would be better. Anybody else may have a chance to start with more or less a clean slate, domestically and internationally. Any person who was in the room when this disastrous scheme was hatched needs to be removed from office. They need to resign, or they need to be removed. And they need to do it immediately. Like General Mattis was honorable enough to do. When he was no longer able to support his president, he resigned. And so instead, they're saying, well, they just follow the orders, yeah? And they triggered a historic, globally destabilizing event. There's a power vacuum, not only in Afghanistan, but there's a power vacuum back in the United States. It's not just about being embarrassed on the world stage. There is a power vacuum. America is on her knees right now. Zero credibility with allies, zero credibility domestically, and oh, by the way, we're broke. We may get to that a little bit later on. If I forget, forgive me. So this whole disaster, this whole event, it lies at the feet of this administration. And it's not about the fact that we left Afghanistan. It's about how we did it. How we started from a position of power. We gave up all advantages we had tactically in the region. We left ourselves with one airstrip that's difficult to keep secure in a city. And I've spoken about that before. And I'm really not trying to Monday morning quarterback it. I'm trying to demonstrate how idiotic the plan was. Giving up Bagram, giving up a supplementary position to get your people out, giving up a place to fall back to, giving up a stronghold to conduct this operation out of. It's only about 20 miles north of Kabul. If things started to go bad in Kabul, very easy for everything just to shift to Bagram, where it absolutely would have been easy to secure. So I'm really not trying to Monday morning quarterback. I'm simply pointing out that the plan was unacceptable from the get-go. So this whole disaster, this global disaster, is on this administration and the cabinet. Everybody in the administration. And not a single one of them should escape some sort of accountability. But I want to ask you a question. Actually, no, I'm going to make a statement. You want to know who's to blame? We are. The American people are. We allowed this to happen. We voted these monstrous clowns into office. Or at the very least, we made it close enough so that potential election fraud made up the difference. We don't know yet, and I don't even want to get into that discussion right now. We're not going to know. Hopefully, we will know something after a while. We allowed and have continued to allow our children to be radicalized in the fundamentalist religion of wokeism while they attend school and while they go to universities. We've allowed our morality to become based in postmodernist, nihilistic relativism. We have allowed the authoritarian left to even steal our language. They've stolen such words as justice, equality, truth, and many others. We cowered when the PC cancel culture invaded our corporations. We cowered and we allowed our economy to be paralyzed by a 99.9% survivable virus for 18 plus months now. We allowed our freedoms of speech, assembly, and religion to be vastly curtailed during the pandemic. Not only without a fight, but without a whimper. And of course, anybody who was paying attention knows that speech was being curtailed well before that. We have allowed our government, run by elitist ruling class and the juggernaut of the administrative state, we've allowed them to greedily devour our liberty, our wealth, and the blood of our fellow citizens. Now I'm going to move on to some news and update. In Iraq, the Biden administration is getting warnings against withdrawing U.S. forces. Now, some of you may not be aware that back in July, I believe it was, the United States agreed last July, which I believe they mean this past July, to withdraw all American combat forces from Iraq by the end of this year. Iraq politicians have warned of repeating the Afghan scenario in Iraq after the U.S. withdrawal. Now, of course, the Shiite forces, who are controlled by Iran, they've downplayed the fears, saying that the situation in Iraq is completely different from the situation in Afghanistan. Don't disagree that it's completely different. It is nevertheless dangerous. So hopefully we'll do better in Iraq than we did in Iran. I can tell you that we're making some adjustments here. Reported by CNN, a leading figure of the Peshmerga forces called on the Biden administration to stay in Iraq, not for the sake of the Kurdistan region, but for the sake of the United States and the world. Going on to say that without the presence of the United States forces, the threat of ISIS would continue to increase and multiply throughout the world. Claiming that the Iraqi Constitution will collapse after a U.S. withdrawal from Iraq. Now let's talk a little bit about Afghanistan. EU foreign policy chief said today, it is impossible to evacuate all allied Afghans by August 31st, which is the current deadline. He warned Saturday, so this is yesterday, it is mathematically impossible for the U.S. and its allies to evacuate tens of thousands of their Afghan personnel and families by August 31st. Okay? The Biden administration has indicated that as long as the airlift option remains viable, that they might move that deadline. The U.S. military is currently in control of Kabul airport, and we've got Air Force guys in the tower running operations. Now, it looks like we want to evacuate about 60,000 people between now and the end of the month. 60,000. It's a lot. So Burrell, the EU foreign policy chief, said that this goal is mathematically impossible. And he says they're having trouble. This is with the Afghans who are they're calling them allied Afghans, that they're having problems accessing the airport. No shit. But he's saying that the U.S. checks and security measures are very strong and are preventing the passage of the Afghan staff. So I heard from a dependable source today that some of these Afghans got into other countries without any ID of any kind. I wouldn't be surprised if the Taliban took their ID, but who's to say they're not Taliban or ISIS or whatever themselves? We just don't know. We don't have a way to vet them. So getting to the airport, and I'm going to throw everybody in with this, getting to the airport for our American citizens who are still trapped outside the wire, at least 10,000 it sounds like, as many as God knows how many. Let's just say multiple tens of thousands is a potential. They got to get through the Taliban. They also keep getting conflicting messaging from the Biden administration. Go to the airport any way you can. Don't go to the airport. Shelter in place. It's been like a ping pong game. It's crazy. Oh, well, so EU says that questions are going to have to be asked over why things happened like this. And they evoked a future EU summit meeting being called to address this situation in Europe. Ooh, I bet that'll do it. So Borrell went on to say that this week's chaotic evacuation was a catastrophe for the West. I certainly agree with that. Now, so that's pretty much, let me see if I got any extra notes here. Oh yeah, here's another one. Finally got a number on the military equipment left behind. About $50 billion worth of military equipment left behind. Guess who the best armed and equipped military force in the region is now? Guess where all terrorists are going to be buying their weapons for God knows how long? It's Afghanistan, of course. Now, I want to get crazy on you. I am absolutely not a conspiracy theorist. At least I wasn't one until after the election, and then I started wondering. I want to ask a question that seems so nutty, but someone suggested it, and I think it was something I saw on a news channel. Somebody hinted at it, and I thought through it, and I was like, yeah. But let me ask you, tell me what you think in comments. Is it possible that we are witnessing and living through a left-wing coup against our president, Joe Biden? So let me throw a couple things out here for you. Why I even ask this question, all right? So ask, based on what you've seen over the past week, 10 days or so, depending on when you started picking up on this story, ask yourself this: is it possible for a president to be this out of touch with reality without it being on purpose? It's kind of like that George Costanza thing where he used to say, I think what I want to do, and then I do the opposite, and that's usually right, you know? Well, it's the reverse. It seems intentional. How can you consistently make the absolute wrong decision? Idiotic stuff, like giving up Bagram Airfield. Next point, why are his secretaries, his people within his cabinet, within an hour of that insulting and ridiculous speech that he gave, but within an hour of that last speech, contradicting him in a news conference? Remember this, back in February, the Democrats tried to remove Joe Biden's sole launch authority for nukes. Do you guys remember that story? It was back in February. I had completely forgotten about it. But remember, they tried to do that. Additionally, there's been some pretty loose lips. It's been pretty openly discussed that the plan all along was to kind of keep Joe on life support for a couple years, then remove him due to the, through the 25th Amendment process as being no longer able to conduct his duties as president, and install the first black female president. And then she'd be eligible for not only to finish out Biden's term, but to potentially have 2 more terms. Now, here's the hole in that theory is that I don't even remember the fraction of like a percent of the Democratic vote she got during the primary. Democrats hate her. They don't like her either. They like the fact that she claims to be a black woman. And that, but that's about where, their support for her stops. Point number, 4. Point number 4. How could the woke press, who covered for Joe Biden for the entire anti-campaign that he conducted, covering up very damaging information with regard to his relationship to China, with regard to his son's computer, and had emails on it that apparently were damning, but it was suppressed by the press and by the Facebook and Twitter, the techies. But how could the woke press, who got this guy elected, how could they suddenly turn on him? It almost, I think I may have commented on my first video that I made in an update, maybe my second video that I made on the I was calling them the Afghanistan bug out. I think I made the point that, geez, I'm a little surprised, that the press across the board is really going after the administration on this. It almost seems it's so out of character. They covered up for so many things that were really, really big before. How is it that they didn't at least try? But that's just another suspicious thing. And that's about all I got. I mean, it's food for thought. It's food for thought, though. Think about that. And let me know. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about that. Obviously, we're going to find out what's happening. Because time, it'll simply play out. All right, so now, let me get serious with you again. I want to talk to my fellow veterans first. So to my fellow veterans, we may not be able to go home. We may not be able to relax. I think that we have to continue to be warriors in a different way. But at the same time, I think this may be the toughest fight we've ever been in. We are fighting for the existence of our country. And to the rest of the American citizens, America needs heroes and she needs warriors now. And that means you. Take action in the world to make it a better place. Have conversations. Don't back down from debate. Stay engaged. Don't be afraid. Root your beliefs in truth. Test your beliefs against truth. Engage with others. Attend town and county council meetings. Board of Education meetings. Have a conversation with your neighbor while you're at baseball practice. But get off your butt and get something done. Get engaged. America is a one-off in the history of the world. America is a one-off. And so many Americans don't know what we have. They don't know what we have because they haven't seen they haven't experienced how the rest of the world works. It's not their fault that they don't know it, but they don't know it. They don't know what they got and how thankful we should be for every single day that we get to live here and for the fact that we were born here, most of us. America is a one-off in the history of the world. Let's not lose her because we failed to act. Wherever you are, have a great day, have a great afternoon, have a great evening. I will see all of you soon. John and Stacy from Semper Savage.
Hey, y'all.
We are a veteran-owned company,
We're family operated.
and we are making some of the finest salad dressing and marinade on the planet.
It's all natural,
We're using the finest ingredients.
like extra virgin olive oil with no added water or sugar.
No food, science, chemistry, craziness. It's homemade salad dressing and marinade in a bottle.
And you're gonna love it.